Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Starting Small. Today, I'm joined by Alex Levine of Xebec. Alex, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Cameron.
Of course. So, I'd like to start off with your upbringing. So, where did you grow up, and what was your childhood like?
Yeah, so I grew up here in Austin, actually just west of Austin, out in Bee Cave. Um, Honestly, grew up in a very, I don't know, just fun and exciting childhood. I'm the youngest of three. I have an older brother and older sister, um, and I think kind of growing up out in the country, but still being involved in the city was pretty fun. But as a little kid, my favorite things to do, in addition to just running around the woods, with neighbors, was building things, right? Building tree forts. I think in the backyard where my parents live, there's still mazes of, remnants of tree forts that we built with zip lines from one end to another. Probably the least safe thing you could possibly imagine. And playing a lot of baseball, football, basketball, all sorts of sports, just running around outdoor, being as active as I could.
Mhm.
I would say is really what defined my childhood here in the Austin area.
Definitely. Would you say that you had an entrepreneurial mindset, say lemonade stands or building anything and selling any products?
Yeah, absolutely. As a little kid, there were three things that I always said I wanted to be: was a baseball player, an astronaut, and an inventor.
Wow.
I didn't know entirely what that meant, uh, but those were just three things that always fascinated me. Yeah, I mean, it's not even necessarily one of my own memories, but it's a memory my parents have. When I was, say 4 or 5 years old, we were on a American Airlines flight or something, and I created what was intended to be this Hot Wheels car wash,
Mm.
with this combination of cups and paper towels and straws and whatever it may be. And so always loved creating things, and certainly had that entrepreneurial spirit rather early on as well. Yeah, always had a lemonade stand set up in my parents' front yard. They kind of have this pool in front driveway in addition to kind of the private back driveway. And so yeah, I don't know, something about being able to create something from scratch always uh, captured my attention, but it was really, focused on that creation side of things,
Mm.
especially early on.
For sure. So, I saw you went on to study at the University of Texas. What did you study there?
Yeah, so I studied civil engineering
Okay.
at UT. Civil engineering because I loved building things.
Yeah.
Like I was saying, really from those tree houses that I had built as a little kid, all the way up through high school physics classes,
Yeah.
making random Rube Goldberg projects, or terrible broken down go-karts, whatever it may be. Just always loved creating things hands on that you could see and touch and feel. And in the most grand sense for a 17-year-old's head was, oh, be a civil engineer. And so that's what I
Yeah.
studied and really enjoyed it.
Awesome. With your time there, were you involved with any athletics or clubs?
Yeah, I would love to say that I was good enough at any sport to play at University of Texas, but unfortunately I
Yeah.
was not. But no, when I was there, I was involved in a couple of men's service organizations. One of them was called Texas Iron Spikes, which has, to this day, continued to be a really influential and important organization to me and myself. It was through connections within Iron Spikes that really set me off onto my career, aside from engineering, into the tech world.
Mm.
And to this date, whether they're interns or new hires or whoever we're bringing on here at Xebec, I'm always trying to tap into those kids here at UT
Definitely.
first. And so yeah, those were, that as well as another organization that's no longer around these days, were the two service organizations that I spent most of my time and built most of my friend group from.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm curious, how did your aspirations for building and engineering, how did that transfer over following college into some of your further career jobs at that point?
Yeah. So, as soon as I left school, my first job, I was lucky to be in tech consulting, working for Accenture.
Mhm.
Loved that job. Honestly, to this day, when I talk to students, especially a lot that were in my shoes, I
Mhm.
highly recommend going to work in the consulting world. Obviously, I can't speak for any of the other firms, but I will say my time at Accenture was amazing. I mean, you're going to
Mm.
work a lot, you're going to work hard, but you're going to learn more than you, possibly could. I used
Yeah.
to tell people when I would recruit for them that, I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up, but Accenture would pay me to learn. And I
Mm.
really felt like that was a pretty fair explanation.
Yeah.
So obviously, that was my day job, right? My career. But like I said early on, when I was in college, actually, instead of having a traditional job at the bookstore or whatever it may be, I used to
Mm.
buy mopeds and motorcycles that were broken in
Mm.
the simplest terms, and I would fix them up and flip them. That was
Wow.
my job. And so
Wow.
all of my college buddies would say, I'd stick my head out the apartment window and I'd see Levine down there in the parking lot showing off some scooter 9 a.m. Saturday morning to some kid in West Campus. And so that was, really my first taste of generating a viable income. Of course, that's pretty easy to do when you're in college, but
Yeah.
enough to move the needle. And
Definitely.
so always had this passion for business, small business, if you will, in addition to creating things. And so doing that was a great opportunity to get my hands dirty, both, figuratively in the entrepreneurship world and literally in fixing things up.
Yeah.
Um, and I think one of the other things I've always really enjoyed is doing something I have no experience doing. I did not grow up, working on engines by any
Yeah.
means. And of course, go-karts and lawnmowers, I broke plenty of lawnmowers, so I had to learn how to fix those, but they're not necessarily the exact same thing. And so I loved the challenge of having to kind of diagnose what the problem may be, go
Yeah.
through and improve upon it. And so did that. And like I said, whenever I was at Accenture, about my first year in, I'd been spending all this time reading about. Um, at this point in time, I was very just, I would say, infatuated with crowdfunding. I thought that it was a really, really interesting space. It was an opportunity for you to do so much at the same time. You could, one,
Yeah.
fundamentally launch a business. Two, you can get amazing user feedback. And three, you actually raise the funds to go launch that business, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of validation and business foundation and fundraising all in one. And so grew up my entire life playing guitar, another kind of entrepreneurial element. One of my first jobs was riding my bike around the neighborhood and surrounding neighborhoods, teaching other younger kids how to play guitar. I've been
Yeah.
playing music my entire life. And so, I had this idea for how I could, build some sort of physical device that would allow people to learn how to play the guitar on their own, and kind of taking the concept from, Guitar Hero and Rock Band that were really big
Yeah.
right around that time. And I said, okay, I feel like I can create some sort of interactive device that allows people to focus on the muscle memory aspects of
Mhm.
learning guitar, just your basic open chords. And
Yeah.
so it was around April of 2016 whenever I launched my first crowdfunding project. I launched on Kickstarter, and I did it all on my own. Right, I
Wow.
just shot the video. I drafted and filed a provisional patent with the U.S. Patent Office, which I would not recommend anybody do on their own. But learned a lot that way.
Yeah.
Set up the LLC, got all of the other legal documents in place, banking documents in place. I created this physical product, sourced our factory overseas, and then put together all the creative to launch this Kickstarter campaign. Spent a long time reaching out one by one to a bunch of different PR outlets, and was
Mm.
fortunate enough to raise the funds I needed to launch the product. It was very small and modest. I needed
Wow.
$7,000. I think I got $7,200 from a bunch of 150 random people all over the world.
Nice.
And that was really my first opportunity to say, hey, I've been studying all these different concepts, reading all these books, blogs, whatever it may be, on ways you can create businesses or grow businesses or modify or kind of, position yourself. But until you really have a use case, you never know what you're going to do. And so
Yeah.
that was an awesome opportunity, being fully prepared to fail at any step along the way.
Yeah.
And was fortunate enough to, reach that goal, get the products, manufactured and sent over to us. I had a team of, friends and family sitting in a living room, putting together boxes and packaging them up. And then I drove them down to the post office. And that was, my very first taste in launching a business. It's no longer
Wow.
around today. But it was absolutely fundamental to my growth as an entrepreneur. And it just really, made the itch that much stronger.
Definitely. That's awesome. With that time period there in 2016 and it transitioning into 2018, were you working a full-time job at this point, or were you
Yes.
fully okay?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm still working, 60 hours or whatever it may be
Got
at
it.
Accenture. My very first prototype of this guitar instructional product, I was up in Portland, Oregon, actually at the time. I would run to the Target, and I would grab whatever supplies I could. The first set of this was popsicle sticks with buttons that I hot glued to it, and I had rubber bands that I bought and I attached it to the neck of my guitar. The most rudimentary
Yeah.
conceptual prototype, and then of course from there went to 3D printing and then injection molding. But yeah, no, very much, nights and weekends, just, really being obsessed with the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. So Xebec comes in 2018. I'm curious, where did this idea of the portable tri-screen, where did that originate from?
Yeah. So, it was my idea as I found myself on the road, 4 days a week, right? So in the consulting world, you're spending Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday working from hotels, hotel lobbies, airports, airport lounges, coffee shops, client site basements, you name it, anywhere but, a consistent workspace.
Hmm.
Meanwhile, on Fridays, we'd come home to, this beautiful Accenture Austin office or Accenture Houston office, which have, 32-inch curved monitors, anti-carpal tunnel wrist pads, Herman Miller chairs, the
Yeah.
perfect setup. But the reality was myself and all of my coworkers were spending 95% of our week huddled over these small 13-inch laptop screens. And
Mm.
so it was really, the first kind of the genesis of this product, what is now our Xebec tri-screen, was focused on solving a problem that I had, right? I
Yeah.
was on the road and I needed something that I could bring with me because frankly, lugging a 24-inch plug-in monitor in your bag was not a very feasible thing to do whenever
Yeah.
you were on the road.
Definitely. So with that, what did the prototyping process look like? Were you engineering this with your expertise prior, or did you partner?
Yeah, absolutely. So we, at the beginning days of this actually is back in 2017,
Mm.
whenever, we first came across this concept, and I'm saying we at this point in time, and I'll eventually bring Trevor into this we pretty soon, my co-founder.
Hmm.
But in early 2017 was whenever, first came across this issue over and over again and said,
Mm.
okay, what can we do about this? On one flight home from my project, I believe I was either in Chicago or New Jersey at the time, flying back to Texas. And I whipped up a real nasty AutoCAD drawing. I 3D printed it over the weekend, busted out some old laptop screens, and that was a really nasty version 0 of
Mm.
what has turned into the Xebec tri-screen.
Yeah.
So it was very much myself. I design in a way that I call Craigslist design.
Hmm.
It is very functional, but not the sexiest thing you've ever seen,
Yeah.
especially this early version. But that was enough for me to bring it with me and actually use it functionally, right? So I bring it
Yeah.
up the next week to where my project is, and my coworkers are instantly interested. They're like, hey, this thing's awesome, because they're working the same life as I am, right? And so then they
Yeah.
go, hey, how can I get one of these? I explain, I printed it over the weekend. I'm not spending 48 hours to build one of these for somebody else. But it was interesting to see that they had a very similar response as I had, and obviously it was something I was proud of. But a longtime friend of mine, childhood friend of mine, went to played Little League baseball together, went to the University of Texas together, did different things in school, but still maintained a strong relationship. Was a good buddy of mine, Trevor Russo. At the
Mm.
time, he was working in consulting in New York City for Deloitte, and
Okay.
he was doing very similar stuff, right? Monday through Thursday on the road.
Yeah.
And he and I had always shared, the entrepreneurial, I guess, passion for small business and passion for business.
Mm.
He studied finance in school. I studied engineering in school. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to talk to Trevor, see if he finds this thing interesting, and maybe we'll team up. And that's exactly what we did. Showed it to him, that following week. He had the same response. His coworkers had the same response. And so we felt like we were, maybe on to something
Yeah.
there on the side.
So tech-wise, you're 3D printing these. How did you wire the complete thing tech-wise then by
Yeah,
yourself?
I mean, these were here in Austin. There's a Goodwill electronics store of all
Okay.
things, and bought, 8, 9, 10 small 10-inch laptops
Yeah.
and ripped out the screens from that and other components that you can find, on Amazon, on Alibaba, you name it.
Yeah.
The electronic element of it is rather simple. And I think growing up in Austin, being just, a fan of the University of Texas my whole life, or someone like Michael Dell has always been just somebody I've admired. And,
Definitely.
he was building computers in his dorm room, and I don't even know if he ended up getting to graduation, but what he was doing was he was assembling components that already existed.
Mm.
And there was, this massive market for people that didn't necessarily need to build each individual component, but know how they connect to one another
Yeah.
and be able to do it in a new and innovative way that then creates a new final product. And I read a real amazing quote by, I believe it was the founder of Nintendo, who was talking about their design methodology, which was lateral thinking with weathered technology.
Mm.
And I just love that concept, right? Anything that you build does not need to use the most cutting edge component or
Yeah.
subcomponent, but if you assemble it in such a way that is, unique, then it can create an entirely new experience. And so that's really what I
Definitely.
focused on. I knew the technology of, the battery powered monitors existed, but doing it in a form factor that was unique like this was not there. And so I was trying to
Yeah.
apply the existing electrical knowledge to these kind of new and innovative mechanical
Definitely.
pieces.
At launch and then also with today as well, what are your main forms of marketing contrasting typical desktop monitors?
Yeah, absolutely. So in October of 2019 was whenever we launched Xebec. So we took the dive.
Mhm.
And our main focus at that point in time was on business travelers, right?
Yeah.
Obviously being biased because that's what Trevor and I were. So we're talking consultants, accountants, salespeople, executives, people that were consistently on the go, right? So
Yeah.
lightweight and portable were the two most key differentiating elements between desktop monitors and our product at the time.
Yeah.
And so that's really what we focused on, concept of putting everything into your bag, going to the airport, flying, and then coming back. How can you do that in a feasible manner? Because this was a quote we used to use. We said, when you're a traveling professional, you're also a professional traveler, and
Mhm.
you need to have the tools
Yeah.
with you when you're on the road. So that was really where we focused early on.
Definitely. From a customer's POV, say they receive the box, they make the order. What does the unboxing process look like? And then to set up, is it fairly simple?
Yeah. So, we're now, as of June of 2021, we're now on our TriScreen 2.
Mhm.
Completely redesigned and reimagined a product, which, you know, our customers have, been extremely excited about. We've been really excited about because we've been able to, apply a lot of the feedback that we got from the original model. We think that unboxing in and of itself is a rather key element. I mean, we spend a lot of our time with any new products we're working on the unboxing and packaging design experience. So
Mhm.
whether the artwork itself on the outside might be rather straightforward, we're really excited that we were able to create this packaging experience that emulates the way in which the product works, right? So two
Yeah.
screens slide out from either side. Our packaging has two parts with the same tabs that you pull out to, reveal the product underneath. And then from
Wow.
there, you can, it may take you your first time a couple minutes to understand which cables you need. We provide well over the amount and number of cables you would need to connect to any type of laptop.
Mhm.
But we would rather send you too much than have you reach out and say, hey, I need X, Y, and Z. And so
Yeah.
other than our special tri-screen adapter, we include every cable that we offer in our box. And so once you know
Mm.
which ones apply to yours and how to connect, the second time you connect, probably do it in 30 seconds, then probably 25, 20. And, I can
Wow.
connect mine now in about 10 seconds, right? It's something
Wow.
that's just really kind of the nature of while my computer's booting up, I slide each screen out, plug one cable into each, and then we're up and running.
That's amazing. From a customer's POV again, what does the speed and battery look like with the device when connecting Xebec? Does it differ?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great question. So you'll see about a 25 to 30% battery drain
Okay.
increase. Now that does vary. It could be lower, it could be higher, on a number of factors. One, the brightness that you select
Mm,
with the side screens, the number of programs and the I guess CPU that is required by these programs
yeah.
that you're running simultaneously. The beauty of having three screens is now you can triple your productivity, and you could be running a animation and rendering software on one screen. You could be
Wow.
running a massive Excel program on another, and have your IDE open for whatever Python script you're creating in a third. And
Wow.
running all three of those at one point in time, could drain it certainly quicker than if you're sitting there on one, PowerPoint, Microsoft Word, and Slack, right? So
Definitely.
that's why we give it a little bit of the range. But with most new laptops having anywhere from 5 to 10 hours of battery life, you still have a good chunk of time
Yeah.
before you're running for an outlet.
Amazing. Looking at Xebec today, then, of course, there's a major differentiation with portability, but what would you say separates Xebec from competitors?
Our number one differentiator from anybody else in this what we call portable workstation space
Hmm.
is the way in which our laptop attaches to or our product attaches to the back of the laptop screen. So
Hmm.
um, you know being non-intrusive, easy to use, and quick, as well as universal, were really key to us from the very beginning, especially because this is something that you will be using on potentially a personal laptop, but very likely a work laptop. So
Yeah.
our product uses a tensioning mechanism, and that's where our utility patent is focused on, this tensioning mechanism that expands and contracts and hugs the side and top of your laptop screen. And as soon as you remove it, I could then, put it on your laptop screen immediately after. And there's
Wow.
no sort of installation process. The other competitors in this space require, um, you know, magnetic plates, 3M
Mm,
adhesive to be permanently installed.
yeah.
And that's something that, just provides a little bit of hesitation from what we found from customers whenever they're either putting them on their own $2,000 new MacBook Pro, or they're
Yeah.
putting it on their HP EliteBook they got from work, but not so sure how the IT department would feel about it. So that's definitely our key differentiator among a number of other things.
Mm,
But yeah, that's the biggest difference.
amazing. Well, I like to conclude each episode with this. If you could share one piece of advice with an aspiring entrepreneur, maybe something you've learned or regret, what would that be?
Yeah, I would. I mean, if I could share one piece of advice for anybody, it's just do it, right? Just go out and send it. And whatever you're thinking about, you can start as small as you need to. You don't need to take a massive leap of faith um, because you have an idea and, throw your whole life away. I think that that's a big fear that a lot of people have.
Mhm.
Start small, build a minimum viable product and see if you can't, build something that can turn into a sustainable business for you, your community, your family. And just don't be afraid to fail, because you're
Mm,
going to fail, and failure is just one step closer to success.
for
So,
sure.
so don't be set back.
Definitely. Well, Alex, thank you so much for joining me. And to the listeners out there, make sure to check out Xebec at thezbec.com.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Cameron.